Welcome to the Athlead Podcast, where we examine leadership in all levels of sports. I'm Cameron Hardesty. I have did a cup of coffee with the NC State Wolfpack back in the day, and for the past 10 years, I've been a leadership coach for a lot of the high school teams around here in North Carolina. My co-host, Joey, if you want to give a little quick introduction of yourself.
Yep, I'm Joey Ruskowski. I am a veteran of almost 9 years in the United States Army. I've spent some time in Fort Hood, Texas, the Fort Bragg, North Carolina, with the 82nd Airborne Division, Raleigh Recruiting Battalion, and the Army's National Marketing Team. Within that time, I had the opportunity to coach high school football for about 1 year, but I also grew up playing football all the way up until I joined the United States Army. So.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Joey. So there's a lot that we need to unpack today. And first thing I wanted to say is, we're going to try our best to be as unbiased as we possibly can, but we're both Eagles fans. And that's something that kind of brought us together in the first place. So what happened to the Eagles this year? Let's just leave it at that, and we'll kind of go from there. But, if you had to summarize, what was the biggest issue that they had? What led to their demise this year?
From a personal opinion, I think that they weren't gelling, right? And like when you look at the 2024, the season prior, it took them a couple of weeks for it all to come together, for them to figure out their identity on the defensive side of the ball, and really the offensive side of the ball to things start flowing. And I think that was kind of in the back of everyone's head this year. Of like, all right, well, we started off so last year, it turned out we won a Super Bowl. So this year's going to be the same thing. And it absolutely wasn't. I think it really just went to gelling as a team more so on really the offensive side of the ball was the biggest. They didn't look in sync at all throughout the entire year. Which ultimately I think led to a lot of frustration. With a lot of key parts of the offense, which turned into a lot of, as consumers would see it, some selfish decision making. So, I just think they weren't on the same sheet of music the whole season. And I think there was a lot of, like, for me, it reminded me a lot of the 2023 season where they were just getting by, just getting by, just getting by. And they go into the Super Bowl, and then they lose. But it was reversed, right? Like the offense was bailing the defense out that year, and the defense has been bailing the offense out the past 2 years, if you ask me, aside from the Super Bowl performance and then the NFC Championship. So,
Yeah, I completely agree. And I know a lot of Eagles fans would agree with you as well. And I know it's very easy as one of those Eagles fans to get very emotional because you come into the season with a lot of high hopes. And we know that in the offseason, obviously we had to get rid of some key players. And just to name a few, Mekhi Becton was one of those players that I think it would have been very interesting to see how this offensive line performed if he was still within the group. And there's so many different, strategic decisions that were made, coaching decisions, really, lack of accountability among other things.
yeah,
And I think for me, as much as I want to go in and get very emotional and kind of pick some of the things that a lot of fans are kind of resorting to, what we want to do in this podcast is really kind of approach it from a leadership perspective and how we think about things. So you and I both come from a leadership background. And one of the things that I always talk about with our teams is how important it is, how culture is created. In my opinion, cultures are created from the leaders. You need to have good, and when I mean good leaders, I mean effective leaders, leaders that can make a positive change, leaders that can influence. So really it comes down to leadership. And I really do think that the famous phrase, I don't know where it's originated from, but I know I've heard in Jocko's book quite a bit, Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership, where there are no bad teams, there are only bad leaders. So I wanted to kind of dive deeply in. And first off, I want to just share a quick story because I want to talk about leadership first. And I think that a lot of people kind of misconstrue leadership and what it really means. I know for me, I'll ask a group of high school students, what is leadership? And I start glazing over. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to describe it. But I know if somebody's a good leader. If the leadership is good, you know it. You can feel it. You can sense it. I was going for a run last week with my dogs. Now, Max is my oldest dog. He's 3 years, and then our youngest dog is Oliver. Now, Oliver's never been on a run before. I've walked with him a couple times, but this is the first time we ever gone on a run together. And I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. So I'm with both dogs, and Max has been on thousands of runs. And Oliver, Max is just like just a I don't know how best way to describe this, but just like a horse in a race. He's like, I
Yeah.
got one job. I know where I'm going to be. Hardly ever moves. He's in front of the pack. Oliver is all over the place. And then like dogs would come by, and Oliver would start to bark, but then he would look back at Max, and then all of a sudden it was almost kind of like, oh well, Max isn't barking, so I'm not going to bark. Max is staying straight, so I'm going to stay straight. And all of a sudden, what started out as complete chaos, towards the end of the run, they're side by side, not
Yeah.
barking. And like Oliver was behaving pretty well. And I was thinking to myself, that's leadership. Like that's leadership by example. I know it's a silly example, but I'm over here geeking out on it. Like that's leadership. Like Max was leading Oliver. So anyway, I'm just kind of wanted to throw that out there. There's so many different ways you can kind of describe leadership, in my opinion. But that was just one little silly example. But what I wanted to do is let's first talk about the Eagles. Let's talk about their leadership, right? So Jalen Hurts, okay. How would you describe, and obviously we don't know the full ins and outs, but how would you describe Jalen Hurts as a leader? What do you think his leadership style is?
I think he's very quiet, but he has a presence, and when I watch, um I don't disagree, like, because the media I mean, they grab a hold of really anything that's gonna get clicks and likes and views, they're gonna, gas it up or downplay it or twist something on it. But I think with Jalen Hurts, I think it's his presence that, he's quiet, he's not gonna scream and yell at you. I mean, he's after the NFC Championship game in 2024 against Washington, like, the whole, locker room was celebrating, he was showering, getting ready to go and watch film. And when that's like your captain of your team, and it's because he was preparing to play Kansas City.
Right.
So I think with his presence and what he does, I mean, he leads by example, of what he needs to do to be successful. And I think that just kind of trickles down for everyone, because the offensive line last year had great leadership within the offensive line as well.
Yeah.
Have the Lane Johnson, they have Jordan Maliata. I
Hmm.
say
Hmm.
his name.
Hmm.
Cam Jurgens, Lane Dickerson. They gelled really well last year, but they all hung out and they all, you could tell that there was a lot of senior guidance from them. And I think it's the same with Jalen Hurts, that they kind of watch what he's doing and then everyone just kind of emulates. That was, and I do think that's still relevant this year as well, um, to an extent. But I think because of the way the season was going, I think some people may have fallen off that track.
Yeah, it's one of the things I preach about all the time. It's just leadership is easy when you're winning every game. It's
Yeah.
it's like rolling a ball down the hill, but as soon as you face some adversity, start losing a few games, you start having a few guys fall out because of injury. Now all of a sudden, it's like pushing that ball up the hill, and now's where we actually do need leadership. And my take on it. So when I think about leadership, I always break it down into the four things, which is professionalism. Are you acting like a professional? And that really kind of encapsulates the
Yeah.
character traits, the good character traits of a leader. The second thing is accountability. It's accountability of self, accountability of others. Are you holding yourself and others to the same high standard that you set? And third thing is leading by example, like we were just talking about, which
Yeah.
is, okay, if you have high standards, that's great. Are you carrying out those standards? Are you living by those standards 24/7? If not, people are going to call you out if you're trying to hold a hard line because, well, you're a hypocrite. You're not doing it. So how do you expect them to also do it? You have to live by that example. And the last thing is loving your teammates. Just going the extra mile to show how much you care about them. And by the way, you do care about them. That's the important thing. Because
To me,
listen,
that's a key,
yeah, yeah,
that's a key thing to say in
yeah,
this
yeah,
because, you can say you do, but, like, do you actually is the main thing. I don't know. I see a lot of it. I see a lot of things. Like I watching the games, there's just certain things that I've always felt this way, especially when I started watching college football more. Which I know NIL and transfer portal, that's a whole other episode to cover that. But I've always noticed when I watch the NFL, there's certain things that, because this goes back to caring about your teammates, there's certain things that just slip by, I think, in the NFL for whatever reason. I don't know. I would assume the dynamic is much different because you have a lot of athletes on a team that aren't making as much as the coaching staff, like all of them, pretty much. Um, which I've never really believed in that. I always thought that was a little. It's always seemed backwards, which I think generates a lot of issues that you see. Um, and you're starting to see that in college football now with NIL. But, like, an effort thing and caring about your teammates, like, I remember losing growing up, and it was, like, devastating. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, I never walked away from a game that we lost, like, in a good mood, happy, smiling. It sucks, dude. No one likes losing. It's an important part of the game, but no one likes it. But, like, I cared about everyone on my team, and I cared about the team, and I'm like, "Damn, like, dude, this sucks. Like, we just lost. Like, no one wants to lose." But I see some plays in the NFL, I mean, particularly with the Eagles this year, where, like, they just drop a pass that should have been a first down. And now instead of being on whatever yard line the Eagles were in on their 4th and long, it would have been first and goal with 45 seconds left. And when that happens, it's not I don't really like, yeah, the person who dropped the ball is obviously like, come on, man, you're better than that. But I also understand mistakes happen and people just have bad games and bad plays.
right,
But it's more so the surrounding where I'm like, people are just walking around like they don't care. Like, and that always, that if I ever coached again, that was like the biggest thing that frustrated me is when mistakes happen, obviously you're going to get frustrated, but it's the care and the lackadaisical. Like, it's just, oh yeah, whatever. Like, I'm just going to, I just dropped a perfect pass on 3rd and long, and I'm just going to like walk off the field and take my time. And then get mad when I'm getting screamed at by my head coach because I'm taking my time walking off the field. And it's things like that that I've always seen. You see more of it in the NFL. I'm watching the Texans last night, and they punted the ball, and the Patriots, they had like a half, not a really good return. I think they actually was negative yards. Um, and the kid, the punt returner wasn't even down before there was a dude on the punt team that was just, like, cheering and doing something. I'm like, "Dude, this is just like, how do you get away with this?" And, but, like, it goes back, like, I don't know if you follow, Last Chance U at all, if you've ever watched it
I know what you're talking about. I've never seen it though.
with Coach James Brown. So I follow
Mhm.
him on Instagram a lot, and he put it really well, I guess, It's either you're coaching it or you're allowing it. And then he also says, what are you gonna do?" Like, he was talking about a player he had, like, "I can't just whisper sweet nothings into these dudes' ears, like, 'Hey, man, do better,'" And he had it, which leads into, like, transfer portal NIL talk, which I don't wanna get into now, I know.
Right, right,
But that's all he's ever dealt with is NIL and transfer portal. Like, these JUCO coaches that are winning national championships, that's one of the most impressive things in college ball because these kids are only there for 18 months tops. You're lucky if you have them for 2 seasons before they get an offer and go back to a D1 AA school.
right.
But I think that translates to the NFL. Like you can't scream and yell at them because then the millionaire running back is just going to recluse and shut off his ears. Like, yeah, I know better because I'm making millions of dollars more than you. But you also can't talk to him like, come on, man. Like you can do it. Like he's not gonna. That's not gonna resonate either. So how do you find? Not to like kind of fall off the rails because we're talking about caring, but I think it all comes back
Yeah.
to caring about your teammates and actually winning. Like, do you care? And I think when you put a price tag on a lot of the things that you're seeing, price tags and then salaries. Yeah, I mean, how would you be that invested if you were making, $30 million a season?
Well, it's 100% gonna inflate the ego, and then we
Yeah.
have this inflation of self. It's like everybody's becoming prima donnas. They already were going into it. You're already getting a free ride. Now on top of that, you're looking out for the best deal. And I'm sure it's basically like giving free agency to college football. And I just listened to an interview with Signetti, coach of the Hoosiers, Indiana Hoosiers. And he was just talking about it. He's like, yeah, I mean, NIL, you have to factor it in. And I'm going to put the best player on the field. And it could be a high school student right out of the gate. I'm going to put him in at corner. Or it could be this corner who's been on a winning program. He played last year for an SEC team. And I mean, we'll see what they both can do. But yeah, you get this overinflated ego and to the wrong player. And that's why not everybody should be a leader. There's going to be players on the team. You got to
Yeah.
fill out a roster. Not saying every single player is going to be a leader. And you have to, as a coach, you have to recognize that. You talked about accountability, you talked about caring about your teammates. See, here's the thing. I think everything that I've studied, it all boils down to those four things: professionalism, leading by example, accountability, loving your teammates or loving your players. So if you are a coach and you have one of these situations where you have, let's just say, no, I don't want to keep using this as an example, but let's talk about the AJ Brown scenario.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, you got a player who's unhappy with the system, and a player who's not getting the ball enough, and there may or may not be. I'm pretty sure there's something going on between him and Jalen Hurts. I think
Yeah.
there's a miscommunication, something in the dynamic there. So anyway, so, well, how do you approach this from a leadership perspective? It's like, okay, AJ Brown is not living by the standard that you set. Let's just say that is the case, right? He's going to the media, complaining about this, this, and this. Um, as a coach, what are you supposed to do? Well, there is accountability of others. So we talked about accountability. I'm going to hold him accountable because he's acting against our standards. So that's my job to hold him accountable. So I go hold him accountable. And how's that conversation going to go? Well, am I going to come in default aggressive and just, AJ, you got to cut this crap out. We shouldn't be doing this, this, and that. Or am I going to be kind of more loving and caring and a little tender because we have a very inflated ego, in my opinion. And when we talk about ego, we're talking about selfishness. That's what ego is. It's you above the team. Well, whether he listens to you or not during that conversation is about how much respect you've gained from him. And how do you earn that respect? Well, do you lead by example? Are you a professional? And do you love your teammates? So I want to quickly just dive in. This is the Lincoln on Leadership. This is a fantastic book, one of the best leadership books I've ever read. Excuse me. And one of the one of the chapters in here, it says Lincoln gained commitment and respect from his people because he was willing to take time out of his busy schedule to hear what people had to say. There's a simple example. Okay. It's, I don't care how busy you are. I don't care how many people are in your organization. Are you taking time to troop the line? Are you taking time to making sure that your players are feeling heard? Do you listen to them? So when you're making decisions, are you bringing them into the fold? Hey, are you asking how they're doing? And genuinely, are you caring about how they're doing?
Yeah. So I that brings me to a military story or a scenario that I've personally gone through and
Yeah.
I've seen. So, like when I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, from the most part, I mean, people might say like, "Well, that wasn't my experience." I'm speaking on my experience. Um, I felt like I had majority of leaders that were appointed above me. If I went to them with an issue, one, they genuinely cared, and two, they genuinely cared about the people within the organization. Um, Especially my last command team that I had, like battalion level right before I left. I had arguably the best battalion commander that the Army has currently. I don't know if he's a brigade commander yet, but the dude genuinely, I would be willing to bet with everyone in our battalion, he probably knew everyone's name. And as a battalion commander, I think that's incredible because this dude's doing 1,000 different things. He has 700, 100 to 700 soldiers in his battalion constantly moving, so I would say he probably knew every single squad leader's name
It's
without.
incredible. And why, and real quickly, if I may interject, like, why is that so? It's because if you know that this
Yeah.
busy dude has time to make sure that he knows who he's talking to, he knows all his people, like, and even one better, like, knows about them, knows about their families, knows their background. It's like, then you feel a part of this family. Like, you
Yeah,
feel part of this brotherhood, right?
that was the biggest thing, and it was always to if anyone ever came to him with an issue or if he saw an issue or like it, I would be willing to bet if it wasn't fixed before it got to his level, he was gonna do everything he could to fix it. Um, I haven't been in his command, I mean, since 2022, and I reached out to him a year ago for a letter of recommendation. He had it to in my inbox without replying within less than 12 hours, asking me if it met my intent. And it was, you know what I mean? Like, and I didn't even, I'm like, hey, I'm applying for this scholarship. Can you please write me a letter of recommendation, sir? And he didn't reply, sends me the letter of rec and says, does this meet your intent? It was the most gas.
Incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
He's
Like,
on another level. He is
yeah.
on another
So,
level. Yeah.
but that seemed like it was for everyone and a lot of people. Now, when I got out to Army Recruiting Command, I had I was lucky, I think, but it was very transactional. And what I mean by that is I came from an organization that cared. And they may have seemed like they didn't for a while, but there was a lot of scenarios I was put in where I needed help and they cared. When I came out to Army Recruiting Command, they may have cared, but I don't think they had the time because it was ran like a business. And it was very transactional in terms of we have to check the box. So we're going to go around, hey, what can we help you with? Well, I have this, help me with this. I need help with this. And if it was outside of any form of processing, any form of, um, you know, transactional organization success, and it's like, well, we'll see. And it would kind of seem like it would take the back burner where it was a check in the block. But I think that's just because these command teams in Army Recruiting Command, I mean, they're answering to, you know, it's a different echelon, right? Like these are a lot of like, yeah, big green suit or army, but also like civilians that are within the, have a lot of influence within the command and funding and things like that. So it was just ran more of a business. And I think that things got a little bit transactional. Um, yeah, but going back to the point, I think it's just like you said, like, how do you handle it? What do you do with the AJ Brown situation? And I think like, it's just I don't know. I think I would probably sit him down and I would probably look and be like, "Dude, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I wouldn't
Yeah.
be nice. And I love AJ Brown. I'm a huge fan, man. I have his jersey, like but I'd probably sit him down if I'm the head coach and I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing?"
Yeah,
Like,
and how he responds to that
tell me.
is gonna tell you how much respect he has, and I really do believe that, 'cause there was that one instance in that, wild card game where he lost his bearing and he started chewing out coach, and I'm pretty sure Sirianni was doing the exact same. Like, they both lost their bearing, they both are just mouthing off at each other, and that's where it comes down to. Like, I know football, no matter what, however you wanna shake it, a football game is high emotional stakes. I mean, I would imagine that has to be comparable to a military outfit. Just you know, uh, just the level of the pressures, the dramatics, and there's so many, and the egos, and there's these super talented individuals,
Yeah,
but there's just a lot going on. So it's very easy to lose your cool. And I get that.
for
But as
sure.
but as a leader, you can't. And I know, it sounds simple, but it you can't.
You
You
literally,
have
yeah,
it
yeah, you can't do it, and a good like, it's just not, it's not good. That's gonna, if you're in a bad situation, which they were, you could see it coming,
mm,
um, and then something like that happens, you're just you're putting the team in an even worse situation because, think about the rookie wideouts or the free agent wideouts that were just signed this year. They're looking up to you, a guy that's, wide receiver one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League, which is crazy to say because of how much talent is across the league.
right.
And you're balling out, screaming at your head coach on the sideline in a wild card playoff game. That just led you to a ring the year prior
And you look down and you have a C on your
on
shoulder.
your chest.
Right. So
Is that
with
really? And then that goes to, I know you and I spoke about before, like, okay, what does that tell every single college athlete? What does that tell every single kid that wears a Kelly Green, AJ Brown jersey? Well, you can do this.
This
It's
is
cool.
allowed.
This is
Yeah,
allowed. Yeah. Well,
tolerated.
and then you have to, and then you rely on the high school coaches and the college coaches to be like, well, he makes millions of dollars. It's like, okay, so that's an excuse.
And that's a great point because, and again, all this is a lot of this is speculative. We're just kind of going off of what we're seeing on but who's to say that behind the scenes Sirianni isn't like, hey, I mean, that is AJ Brown. And what are we gonna do? We have to kind of give him some tolerance a little bit. And that's where going back to the point of when Sirianni is going to talk to AJ Brown. And let's just call this the accountability scenario where at this point he's like, all right, you know what? I got to go say something because AJ's out of line. And this is where I need to hold the standard. I'm the leader. I'm the head coach. This is my job to step in. And he delivers this message to him that is not heard. He gets disrespect on the other side. And that's telling me that clearly AJ doesn't respect Coach Sirianni. Now, real quickly, that's why I always kind of like to take it a step back and say, what led to this point? Sirianni definitely seems like a player friendly coach, kind of easygoing, likes to have a little fun, which is great. No judgment whatsoever. Everybody has their own leadership style. But no matter what style you pick, you still have to be damn good at your job.
Very.
You have to be dependable. And I think going into this season and seasons prior, he's had issues. Let's just call it round up the horses, for lack of a better way to put this. He's had some cultural issues the past couple of years. We saw it. We saw it. Yeah, we saw it in
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah. 20.
It,
Yeah.
that breakdown. And to me, it just seems like we've had some cultural issues, and I think that there's been some debate about, are they winning with Nick Sirianni? Or are they winning in spite of it? I think we've had a lot of talent, and I'm not an expert to be able to say, yeah, for without a doubt, it is winning in spite of Nick Sirianni because I do think he's a good coach. But there have been a lot of questionable decisions that he's made this season. And I made a note of it. There was the overtime against the Chargers. Some of the decisions he made in that one. There were some questionable decisions made in the Chicago Bears game. A couple times where he went for two when he shouldn't have went for two. So even doing
Yeah.
his job as the game manager, I felt like he fell short a lot this year. So
Yeah. I would agree with that. Because when you look at some of the, there's some wild calls, man. And I'm more so on the side of like, your defense is good, but I'll be damned, like, how many times are you gonna put them on the 40-yard line with their back against the wall because
right,
you went for it on 4th and 1 or 4th.
right.
I would say not 4th and 1 because they go for it on 4th and 1, they get it a lot. But, like, that wild card game, I would be interested to see how many times they went for it on 4th and 2 and put their defense with their, on the other side of the field. Can you please stop them again?
Right. Right. So when you think about these questionable decisions, right? And again, let me just put myself in AJ Brown's thinking here for a second. Okay. So he's been faulty. Thinking about, Nick Sirianni. He's been faulty at his job. our offense is not running well. And I think AJ's been around the game enough to know that the offense isn't clicking. Like our schemes, our formations, like
Yeah.
something's not adding up here, and Sirianni's not doing anything about it. And I'll take it one step further. Maybe he doesn't know how to do anything more about it. He's relying on Patullo's guidance, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So maybe he doesn't respect him as a head coach. And that's where I think, like, okay, so if you go to hold somebody accountable and they don't respect who you are, then you have to look back at yourself. It's very easy for us to say, hey, AJ is just a problem child. I just got to deal with it. Or maybe you got to look at those four things again and think about how you're approaching your job. Are you dependable? Are you coming every day with enthusiasm? Are you leading by example? Okay. If you're doing those two things, let's just say I'm being a professional, which means I'm making good judgment calls. I'm dependable. I'm consistent. I'm coming in here every single day on time. I'm leading by example. Also, on top of that, I'm showing that I care about my teammates. And I have no doubt in my mind that he cares about his teammates. And I think he's
Yeah.
hitting that fourth category pretty well. But if you look at those top ones, is he acting like a professional? How many times has he lost his bearing at the Kansas City Chiefs fans? Or so these little things, I think, in my opinion, add up in terms of whether AJ Brown's going to respect what he has to say.
They
Because
do. Yeah. I think they do, and I think I'm this might catch a lot of people off guard with me saying this. If I'm Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, I don't trade him this year, but I have a genuine come to Jesus moment, you
I
know?
agree, I
Like,
agree.
because when you look at because the only thing that I can say about AJ, you know, he is dominant when you get him the ball, and he had a horrible game. Um, Everyone has a bad game. I'm not an NFL athlete, so I it's hard for me to sit and be like, "He had a horrible," couldn't even run with those guys. Um, but I do see because I have his stats pulled up, and again, I don't know how accurate this is. I do see his frustration because in his top slant season, so when he runs a slant,
Mm.
he saw 34 targets, catching 26 total for 386 yards, resulting in 19 first downs. These third down examples, Brown has frequently converted third and long situations using a slant route, including notable 20+ yard game, such as a 21-yard reception in 2023 third down scenario. But there's one on here in 2022 and 2023. He was 97% leading the league in 2022. So you saw it on the 3rd and 6 against, um, who now I put it out of my brain. Um, Against
The 49ers.
the 49ers,
Even I was struggling there. Yeah.
you saw it
Mhm.
because he got targeted and he dropped it.
Right.
But I would argue about I think it was like he was 86% this year. And
Yeah.
86% and then resulting I saw a stat on it, I wish I saved it, resulting into a first down. That's crazy. So when you're not targeting him on a 3rd and 5 on a slant route, I can see the frustration, but I can also that's like I'm like 30-70. Where like 30% I'm like, yeah, I can see it, but then 70% I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're not gelling. Everyone's unhappy with the offensive coordination right now. Everyone's unhappy. Everyone has a lot to say. However, no one's ever been an offensive coordinator, you know. But with responsibility comes everything that comes with that. Um, I think the last thing you do is act out how he did.
Yeah, and I love this idea about the come to Jesus meeting with
Mhm.
everybody, because how do you fix, so if you were, and this, I'd love to even hear it from your experience, with your platoon commander. Like, how would he approach this? Okay, let's just say for the next couple weeks, he substitutes in for Howie Roseman. Says, Howie, go focus on what we need to do in the draft. I'll curtail the culture here. What is he going to do? How is it going to sound like?
Well, I think in the Eagles locker room and the organization right now, it's you could say Howie Roseman would be the platoon commander and the platoon sergeant, so his counterpart who's supposed to guide the platoon commander, who normally has more experience in managing and dealing with people and soldiers would be Nick Sirianni. Um, because ultimately what Howie Roseman says, that's what's going. Like if he wants to get rid of him and trade him, guess what? I don't care what you say, right? Um, but I think it's very much I think he would probably go about it, sit him down. It's not a polite conversation. I would imagine he probably would get sat down and say, "What are you doing? I don't really care about how unhappy you are. Everyone's unhappy because guess what? We're not playing right now. And it's January 19th. So I think we're all a little unhappy. Why are you going to the media? I want to have this resolved before we leave my office. And how can we make this better?" And I would involve a lot of people. I would have probably involved, and they may have, I don't know, but I would involve Kevin Patula. I would involve AJ Brown. I would involve his counterpart, Devontae Smith. I would involve every single leader on that offense. Because sometimes it's hard to hear the reality. And I think that because of his actions, they were under a ton of scrutiny from the media this year, and it drew a lot. And the media divided them. You
Yeah.
could see it, because of these actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it just goes back to I I'm not a believer in this because obviously, like, I'm not. I don't think they should get fined. But Tom Coughlin, I saw a podcast about a guy that went from New York when they were winning Super Bowls. I forget the player's name, compared to Jacksonville. So huge market versus small market. And he said when he was in New York, the unspoken rule was you're 5 minutes before a meeting. So if you walk in at 7:30, you're late, right? And that's the same in the military. You walk in, if we have to be somewhere at 7:30 and you're not here at 7:15 and you're here at 7:16, you're late. You're not 15 minutes early, right? But Tom Coughlin wouldn't do anything. He's not going to yell at you. He's not going to have a meeting with you. He's going to look at you, and then you'll have a envelope in your locker, and you're just going to be fine. And that is a coach that is playing the game
Yeah.
because he knows you make all this money. He knows if I sit you down in this room, nothing I say is going to change your attitude because your ego is so big, your head can't even sit on your own shoulders. He knows all of these things because he's been in it for so long. So, how do you do it? And this goes back to my point with the military. How do you do it? Well, I'm going to take your money. I'm just going to fine you if you're not going to respect my my structure and the way I run this team. And how we would do it in the army, if a guy was constantly showing up not on time, well, I'm just going to take more of your time because I have to be here way before you have to. So what am I going to do? Now I'm going to waste your time. So instead of you being here at 7:15 for something we have to do at 7:30, you're going to be here at 6:30. And you want to get a guy to be like, I'm not going to be late anymore. Tell him to come
Yeah.
in 90 minutes early.
Yeah.
And I think so. I think the coming to Jesus conversation is good. And I think you involve a lot of people. And then I would also probably say after that, if it doesn't change, like he shouldn't be yelling at Nick, like screaming at Nick Sirianni on the sidelines is just I don't know. He let me down.
What's it gonna accomplish?
He really let me down as a leader. So it's like
Yeah.
tough, man. Like I would be so curious to talk to a guy who's coached in the league to be like, how do you handle this? Because it is the most complex. You're not going to bench him. You can't.
Right.
You could. But it's
And the
like,
good news is I'm pretty sure this checks out, but because, you know, NFL has contracts versus like college teams who have NIL, it's like this player's gonna be gone next year. What percent?
yeah,
Contracts in the NFL, it's like, no, we have him for 2 more years unless we do some sort of crafty trade.
yeah.
But right now, let's look at the likelihood. It's like we need AJ Brown. We 100% need him. And I know that there's a lot of demons in the closet and a lot of things that I'm sure there's tons of resentment in this locker room. You could feel it. Him and Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts and Sirianni and AJ Brown, and the list goes on. There's probably several layers of unresolved issues between these folks. And
Yeah.
if it was up to me, I mean, part of me is like, hey, here's some boxing gloves. Go in a room and just get it out. I'm being half serious about that. Like,
Yeah, no, but, like,
let
it's
like, just get it out and then because, okay, are we good now? And now here's what we're gonna do moving forward. We're gonna have a new identity, and we're gonna come up with together with what that's gonna be, because the previous year ain't gonna fly again. We're gonna implement some new things. We're gonna hold each other accountable, and there's gonna be a new standard on this team. I saw this funny, meme, and it was Josh Allen crying at the podium, full of emotion. And it's funny because like the people in Buffalo, oh Josh, it's okay. You let us down, again. For
again,
how many years now?
8th year in a row.
Meanwhile, below it was Jalen Hurts. Jalen, you were just the Super Bowl MVP. You just got us the Super Bowl. We had a rough season this year. Get him out of here.
Calling for his
Jalen
yeah, they're calling
Jalen
for
Hurts
oh, they
sucks.
want everyone gone, trade
Yeah,
everyone.
it's like, okay, I think it's important that we just stay realistic. I think there's definitely going to need to be some meetings that have this off season. It'll be exciting to see because I believe they're going to be bringing in a new offensive coordinator, but I think it really just these leadership traits and these things that we talk about. I mean, there's a lot of building and rebuilding that needs to happen. Not so much with players, but just a rebuilding of attitude. I think there needs to be less selfishness. I think if you want any leader, if you want to wear the C, the team comes before you in everything. Before you start speaking out against your teammates, before you let anybody in, they're not a part of this brotherhood. All they're trying to do is fill their pockets with their own money. And I agree with you, especially with the Tom Coughlin, that note about finding, hey, that's his accountability system. And you know what? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I'll tell you what, does it work? If it works, sounds good to me.
He led 'em to 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So, and that's a thing, everyone's gonna have their own system. It leads me to, like, I know we just talked about the brand new offensive coordinator. I don't know. I mean, I'm iffy. I know all of Philly is and I am 50-50 between Mike McDaniel and, Brian DeBall from New York. The only reason why I'm iffy about McDaniel is everyone's talking about his relationship with Vic, um, and them in Miami, but it goes about what we talked to on our episode,
Mhm.
and it has nothing to really do with that because I think the roles will be much different.
Right.
Has everything to do with putting another young coach under Nick Sirianni, who is also young. So I think sometimes, and I think Nick Sirianni has done a phenomenal job. I mean, he won us the Super Bowl, but I think sometimes you have to manage and lead up, and having Vic as the D coordinator, and then maybe bringing in Brian DeBall, who's older and is not going to put up with a bunch. He's not going to sit here and talk swag and all these things to your organization. Which I don't know if Mike McDaniel's going to do that or not. I know he's just younger, and you can tell he dresses like it and all that. He's just going to be a very stoic guy on the
Yeah.
side. This is what we're doing. I'm good at it. I
Yeah.
have proven history. So
Yeah.
I think it could go really both ways, but I think that's what they need right now. They're lacking some sort of structure, and it shows.
Yep. And an accountability system that works. I think Sirianni needs to take a good look in the mirror, figure out this is what my leadership style has been. This is what I've tolerated in the past. This is what I'm not going to tolerate anymore. So you need to do everything you possibly can to start earning their respect back, especially for those who've lost it, and for who knows why. And then, yeah, address the issue. And for me, I'd love to have an offensive coordinator like a Big Fangio, somebody who does not want to be a head coach. It's like I just want to be an
Well,
offensive
dude,
coordinator.
I say this all the time when I'm talking like football with a couple of my buddies at the gym. I'm like, dude, the best offense and defensive coordinators are guys who are like, I was a head coach and I hated it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
that is the reason why I'm like, I talk about Mike McDaniel coming in, how, "Oh, well, he's young," and him working with
Right.
Vic.
Right.
It wouldn't matter because both of Mike McDaniel and Brian DeBall are coming off of a head coaching job, and both of them could take this role and be like, "I'm done. I don't wanna do this." Like,
Right.
and
Right.
you look at the, who's the Ohio State defensive coordinator? He won 3 rings with Belichick.
Ah, I know who you're talking about.
That guy is a lifetime D coordinator.
Yeah.
I don't know if he
I see his face. I can't think of his
I
name.
don't know if he
I know who
is
you're talking about.
I don't know if he has ever been
'Cause he wasn't he on the Eagles for a hot minute? He was the Eagles D coordinator for, like, a short stint.
Matt Patricia.
Trisha, that's it.
So, I have him pulled up. Let's look at his Wikipedia. Let's look at that. Wikipedia is a little Amherst, Syracuse, New England Patriots from '04 all the way up to 2017. 12 to 17, he was the D coordinator. Um, he was the Lions head coach, left that, was a he was a consultant for 2 years, senior advisor, and then he was a senior defensive assistant at Philly in '23, and then he went to Ohio State. So this guy's been exclusively outside of 2 years a defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Who's tried it is probably like, "You know what? I'm happy in my little being in my pigeonhole over here." Like, I'm
Yeah,
happy with that. And
I'm
honestly, you can become really good and dangerous with that if that's all you focus on, because as a head coach, you got so many different things you gotta worry about. Like,
yeah,
"Hey, I just wanna come up with the best schemes, best formations, best plays. I'm gonna look at my players, know what talent I have, and expose weaknesses, highlight our strengths, and we have such a talented team. It's like we just need somebody to come in with the right scheme, right idea, gets to know the players, earns their respect right away. I think you bring in a veteran coach like, Dabo, I think from the
Brian
Giants, Ryan
DeBoer.
Dabo. Yeah, that's my vote, in my opinion. I think a little
Yeah,
less personality, a little less, but honestly, here's the thing, just to kinda close this out, I mean, we could think about all kinds of different things. It's gotta be what works. And whatever system you're gonna implement, it just needs to work. Leaders need to be effective. The culture needs to be a winning culture. And however we can get to that, here's the thing, they can do it. They can do it in the off season. They've proven it
so
time and time again. So all Eagles fans out there, just take it easy this off season. It's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be some wild things happening. By the way, we have a lot of draft picks coming up. So
7 in the
yeah,
first I think we have 7 total picks this year. I think, like, a handful of them are in within the first 4 rounds. I don't know, I gotta look at that, though.
that's right. That's right. And we got national championship tonight. I know I'm going to check this out. So by the time this airs, I think that championship will have already happened. Next time, let's talk about the Hoosiers. Let's talk about Signetti and the culture he's built with that team, and we'll have a lot to talk about after the game tonight. Joey, man, it's been a pleasure. Anything else? Close things out.
No, Indiana's 4th in the nation on penalties.
It's incredible.
They're behind 2 service schools, which makes total sense.
And if I'm not mistaken, I thought, and this may have been last year, but I thought I saw an interview with Signetti that he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, look at our first quarter scores. Like we are rarely ever trailing.
Yeah,
I think he said we've never trailed this year, which is incredible as
yeah,
an offense. Yeah.
so
So a lot to unpack next week, but till then, take it easy, my man.
alright, I'll see you next week.